the color is now part of the history of CSS. My daughter's name is now part of the history of CSS, which is I can never express what that means, how that feels. I can't. I've had 11 years to try to find the right words, and I just don't think I don't think humanity has advanced to the point that we have that sort of capability to express those kinds of things.
CSS is emotional. This phrase came to me randomly one afternoon when I was trying to explain CSS to someone at the office. And it was very unexpected. It just hit me like a truth that has been there always, waiting for someone to say it. And what was an explanation of styles and selectors immediately became something more. It became a realization that CSS is more than just code. That CSS is about expression, is about nuances, and CSS is very personal. Months later, in November of 2024, that moment became a seed that grew into a blog series where I explored the depth and, of course, the emotions behind CSS. Then something happened. Around that time, CSS got a new logo, and with the new logo came a color that was tied to a story that's so deeply human that it sent chills down my spine. So I reached out to Eric Meyer, who is one of the founding fathers of CSS and actually very central to this story. What followed was a conversation I would never forget in my life. This video is a piece of that moment, and it is emotional, it is educational, it is inspirational, and I promise you, after seeing this video, you will never look at CSS the same way again. Something around that. So I'm trying to add the first question with the next now, which is how do we create more space for that, and what really has this event of Rebecca Purple being added to the spec, what has it taught you, about the power or the benefits of bringing our humanity into our work?
It's taught me a lot of things. Okay, so for those who are listening and don't know, the context here is that my middle daughter, Rebecca, in 2013, when she was just a few months into being 5, was discovered to have aggressive brain cancer. We fought really hard to get her treatment. I mean, we got her treatment, and she had another 9 months of really good life, but she died in 2014 on her 6th birthday. She did make it to 6, which she had really wanted to do. And yeah, I had been blogging about it because I write, clearly. We saw the book. I pursued an English degree. Never didn't finish it, like we said, but I had been writing about it just as a way to let people in, I guess, without having... the thing about blogging, of course, is that it scales, right? The thing that you might want to say to everyone that you know and you care about and who cares about you, you can say in one place and let them read.
Yeah.
Right? So this is a lot of what I was doing. I mean, also it was a way of processing. And so a few days after she died was her funeral, and we had said that anyone who wanted to come was welcome, and that if they felt comfortable doing so, they should wear purple rather than black, because purple was Rebecca's favorite color.
Yeah.
And so a number of people did, but a lot of people also in the community said on social media, let's make our avatars purple for the day. And a lot of people did that. And I think it was Robin Sloan who proposed that action. And I think also said, could we get a purple named for her in CSS? Jeffrey Zeldman, who was colleague, friend at the time, a business co-owner with me of an event apart, amplified that. Basically spread that around. It's like, yeah, I think we should do that. I think it was Dominique at the W3C who created sort of an official proposal, and then it moved forward incredibly quickly. Like within 2 weeks, it had been settled on in the working group, and it was starting to land in browsers. The initial proposal was for Becca Purple. I said, if this is accepted, it has to be Rebecca Purple, because she had told us a few weeks before she died that she was about to be 6, and Becca was a baby name, and she wanted to be Rebecca. I had always called her Rebecca, but almost everyone else called her Becca, and she usually responded to it with, laughter, because she laughed about everything. But yeah, that happened, and the working group accepted it, and it was added into browsers. So 663399 or HSL 270 degrees, 50%, 40%, I believe, is Rebecca Purple. I mean, what it taught me was that community can shape technologies. Like, I had always known that, right? People pushing for the community pushing for browsers to be interoperable, to be less inconsistent. The Web Standards Project. That was an example of the community shaping the space, not specs in that case, not specifications, but browsers themselves. Like, stop being deliberately inconsistent with each other.
Yeah.
We need you to be consistent so we don't have to build the same website 2 or 3 times, one for each browser.
Yeah.
The Web Standards Project was a driving force in making that happen. Designers saying for years and years and years, we really need some kind of a grid layout system, eventually became CSS Grid, right? So community can, but this was a very specific, coming together and saying, we want to memorialize this person, and here's how we want to do it. This has happened in other technical mediums. There's I don't know the details because I'm not a player, but in World of Warcraft, I believe it is, like World of Warcraft Online, the massively multiplayer online RPG. Yeah, there's a shrine somewhere to somebody who was big in that community and then died. And I don't remember the details, but people who are more familiar with gaming or specifically with World of Warcraft will know that. Yeah. I think there's a tribute or two in EVE Online. This has always happened, right? This is the first time I'm aware of it happening in a specification, although it probably isn't the first. It's just, obviously, it's one that I know about because it happens to be, well, obviously, it was my daughter, but also in a specification that I care about. And that's, it's part of why people propose it, of course. And I've been told it's the last named CSS color the working group is likely ever to define, because CSS is developing in ways that you can just define your own now using custom properties, and eventually there will be even more powerful ways to do that are being worked on right now. So it's possible that that's the last one, but in a way I find that unfortunate, because we could name our own colors, right? And yes, we'll be able to do that individually, but in specification form. somebody said, "Oh, what are we going to name every color point?" It's like, sure. There are a lot of color values,
Yeah.
right, that have no names. That we could make a Zeldman orange, or we could make a Taylor Swift green, if whatever, right? We could do that. And for that matter, named colors are they're like custom properties in the sense that just because there's already a red, we could call it Taylor Swift red and have it mapped to exactly the same RGB or HSL or whatever values.
Yeah.
Both of them just point at the same thing. So essentially, we could have an infinite number of named colors. It's just, some popular colors might have a lot of named colors that point at them. And, yes, there's the pushback there of, well, then that means the browser makers have to maintain this massive expanding list. And okay, but it's also not that difficult. And I know that they can deal with much bigger lists than they have. And I feel like there's something a little bit lost by closing that door. Or, closing the door to that sort of a thing. But communities will find other ways to do, other ways to memorialize people as time comes. I mean, at a certain point, early CSS pioneers or early HTML pioneers, early JavaScript pioneers will start to die. That's kind of the deal here in the world. And, maybe there will be memorials put into specifications. If the person, if one of the original authors of CSS dies, which, I don't think they're anywhere close to that, but stuff happens in this world. And so, maybe every CSS spec from that time forward will have a little memorial note in it. Maybe, I don't know. But I really, the color is now part of the history of CSS. My daughter's name is now part of the history of CSS, which is, I can never express what that means, how that feels. I can't. I've had 11 years to try to find the right words, and I just don't think I don't think humanity has advanced to the point that we have that sort of capability to express those kinds of things. And in a way, I think that's part of where memorials come from, is that we don't have a way to express how we hurt for someone else who's hurting.
Yeah.
We can say words, but I don't think we come to the point where they fully capture it. Maybe they never can.
Yeah.
In the same way that we don't have the words for me to express how touched, how honored, how humbled I am by what happened and how this happened, what the community chose to do in my daughter's honor. That's where memorials, I think, a lot of times come from, is that ability to just put down a marker to say, this sort of thing happened here.
Yeah.
Right. And everyone brings to it their internal understanding of, what it is to lose a cherished loved one, or what it is to know somebody and look up to somebody who is hurting. Or, to want to just take someone's pain and ease it somehow.
Yeah.
All those things are bound up in these sorts of memorials. I've seen, and there are those who say that as long as someone who is memorialized is remembered, they're not truly gone. Fans of the Discworld series by Terry Pratchett will be familiar with this, I guess. I haven't read them myself because they're like 50 books, and
oh, wow.
I'm very busy. So, but yeah, there's that as well. And I will still sometimes see people say, oh my God, I was typing in DevTools, like I was typing a color in DevTools. I was trying to type red, but it tried to autocomplete Rebecca Purple. I went and I looked that up, and now I'm crying. Or, now somebody's cutting onions in here or something like that. The way that people sort of try to humorously distance themselves from grief.
Yeah, true.
Which I understand, believe me. And so that it comes up, and it came up this past fall because when CSS got a new logo that was designed by a group that was trying to design a new logo, the community when they were given color choices, they overwhelmingly chose Rebecca Purple as the logo color for the CSS logo. So there it is again. And, there's a part of me that in some ways, I think in the way that this is a part of the history of the web, if being remembered means you're not truly gone, she will outlive me, which is what any parent wants for their child anyway.
Yeah.
This is the only way that she can do that, unfortunately, that I know of. But I'll take it. Yeah. And it taught me that community can honor its own.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think it should more often. Actually, not just sometimes. I pretty much think that community should more often honor the people who are important to it in some way or another. And it turns out apparently I'm one of them. But other pioneers, when Molly Holschlag died, she was for those who aren't familiar with her, she was just a very early web pioneer, teacher. She wrote a lot of books. She wrote like a crazy number of books, like 35 or 40. I don't.
Oh wow.
I lost count. I think she lost count. Anyway, when she died, a lot of people started posting their reminiscences about her. And we see that when someone if a celebrity we really care about dies, or like a band member of a band that we love, people will post. It's like, oh, their playing meant so much to me. Their lyrics meant so much. Whatever. Like we do that. We sort of publicly recognize this is a person who was important to me, and I'm sorry that they're gone. I'm sorry that that the people who knew them are hurt and grieving. In some cases, I'm sorry that I'm hurt and grieving. People can grieve celebrities. They can grieve pets. They certainly grieve loved ones. So I learned what the community. I learned what I meant to the community in a way that, I could have said, yes, a lot of people have read my HTML tutorial and read a book and seen the talk or whatever. Okay, yeah. But this was different. And I hope that we see more things like that over time. I do. Because it really drives home that technology is about people.
Yeah.
We don't build okay. There are people out there who build technology for technology. Some specifications are written to be things that are machine readable, right? They're not meant for humans to read and understand.
Yeah.
Those don't interest me. Those technologies have never interested me. They interest me even less now. But technologies like HTML or CSS, I think arguably JavaScript, depending on where you fall in the programming spectrum, are all meant to be human readable and human comprehensible. Right? Yeah. HTML is something that I can teach you the basics. I could teach anyone the basics in like a morning, right? Between breakfast and lunch, I can have someone who understands the basics of HTML. They don't understand everything, but they understand like the concepts. They understand how to put together a basic document that has no styling. But they understand headings and paragraphs and lists and like why we nest things the way that we do. Yeah. And then in less than a week of dedicated instruction time, I could probably teach somebody basically all of HTML, including all of the little nooks and crannies that they'll probably never need to know again, but we can go through like what they do, what they're for. Yeah. CSS is more complex than that. I can't teach you the basics. Well, I could teach you the basics in a morning, like the very basics. Yeah. In a morning. Teaching everything might take longer than a week. Maybe. Yeah, probably. But I could probably do it in a semester of a class. Not get into every single nuance of how things fit together, but JavaScript maybe would take longer than that. And if you're not like in the programming world, that would be more difficult, but still, it's still human readable and digestible and comprehensible with some training. And that's what these technologies are specifically built in these ways. HTML and CSS particularly are a fundamental design principle is human readable, human understandable, human writable, right? Like I can sit and I can type CSS. I do not need to use some kind of graphical interface where I drag things around and then it spits something out the back end. Yeah. Right, that I will never look at, because if I do, I can't understand any of it, right? There are tools that you can do that and it will spit out CSS, but when I look at it, I can read it and understand it. Yeah. That's what these technologies are for. That's what they're designed to do, is to be human, readable, and understandable. And that's, I think, a very important principle. You should be able to, write your own document and style sheet using nothing but a text editor, a keyboard, in your brain. And that's still quite possible. And that's why I think we need to remember that more. And memorials are one way to remember that. Coming together to shape the direction of a technology or a specification or an entire web is also important. Those are things we can do. It can take a lot of work depending on what it is you're trying to change or what effect you're trying to have, but it's still possible. And the web is a fundamentally human first medium, is a fundamentally human first technology. Yeah. And I think that's incredibly valuable. There are too many technologies in the world today that are not. And this is, it's an amazing thing that the web is so human-centric that it is designed to be compatible both forward and backward in time. Yeah. You can still get the first web page ever written and have it rendered in your browser, and it works. And it doesn't even look that different. I mean, yes, your font sizes are different and your window width is different. And instead of being black on gray, it's black on light gray, it's black on white. Yeah. But it's still, the text is there, the links work, they still take you where sites are still up, right, to those places. And I can take one of the very first web browsers and display my website in it, and it doesn't look like my website does in Firefox or Chrome or whatever, but the content's all there. I can read the text. I can follow the hyperlinks, right? Yeah. I can go to Wikipedia in this browser, and I can read Wikipedia. I can't see any images because it's literally a text mode browser. It doesn't have image capability, but I can read the content. Using a browser that came out in 1991, I can read today's Wikipedia. Yeah. And using a browser that came out today, I can read a website that was written in 1990. That's astonishing. It's amazing. There are not technologies that do that. And this technology does, and that design principle has been carried through from then to today. The web prioritizes accessibility over consistency. It prizes the ability to access information and to share information over everything else.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
It's astonishing that it still works, and that it's still, in some ways, I think it's astonishing that it's still allowed to exist. Right? That's so fundamentally incompatible with like making a profit or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, the web is not about that.
Yeah.
That's not what the web is about. You can use the web to make profits or whatever, but that's not what the web was designed to do. The web was designed to share information and to spread knowledge, and to do so regardless of when your thing was made, when your information was put online, when it was published, or when your thing that you're using to access that information was created. It's legendary. I don't have the words for it. We're back to, I don't have the words to express how incredible that is. But yeah, that is something I think we all should cherish and defend as hard as possible.